We're here today at the Bundalla mission site known as Bundalla Cattle Station, and behind me is a plaque of all the people that passed at this particular site and their names and the dates of which they passed. You see here my grandmother's grandmother, Maggie Palmtree, our direct descendant, who was taken off Imin country and ended up at Bundalla Mission, where mob as far north as rainforest, Kuku-Thapin country, and as far south as Kamilaroi country were actually here. So it's not only a significant site with unmarked graves and burials, but also all mobs around the countries who have their old peoples here, and then also that history that needs to be shared with the broader public. And even myself and my cousin Luke here, it's very emotional seeing it in person, the names of those people. To think of the lives they lived during that time, and then the life they lived here under government control due to the White Australia policy and the apartheid laws in Queensland. Preserving it is about that cultural identity again, coming and seeing and paying respects to your old peoples that were never given the respect they deserved during their time of passing. Those sites are sites not only of forced removal, but they're sites of resistance where we still maintain some form of connection to our country, our people and our culture. And for me and myself and my future generations and family and community, it's a blessing to be able to go back to those sites, to visit the old people that are buried there.
There's 300 people buried here. Of the 300, there's only 3 that actually have headstones. But when the graves are dug, they're not dug by a professional grave digger, they're dug by our people, in case other bones are disturbed. William Barrack died, but for us, he's still here. And he still guides us, he definitely guides me. It makes me feel proud to be a descendant and be able to carry on his work. I have to do a lot of negotiation with the government now on a whole range of matters, and sometimes I'm frightened. But then I think about him doing that work, back in the late 1800s, how daunting that must have been for him. Anytime I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, I think about what would William do. And so he's an inspiration for many people from all mobs across Victoria that ever had ancestors that spent time here, because they all know the story of William Barrack and what he did for his people.
When we're talking about below country, what we're talking about is underground water systems. And when I share with the other elders and I talk about aquifers and the deep systems under the ground, they say to me, oh, what you're talking about is old water, because they understand that these aquifers take thousands and thousands of years to recharge. They can also sing the songs and tell you how the river runs underground. Some of these river systems will run for hundreds of kilometres. So when we're talking about underground systems and impacts on the environment and particularly water, we've got to understand the connectivity of these systems underground and the connection to the surface. This level of uncertainty around climate change is going to be a recurring theme. And so we need to be very, very careful how we manage this system.
When we think of below ground, you have different layers. So you have your aquifer, which is your body of water, or some people may know it as a water table. There's different levels and depths of those aquifers. Different levels of that water feed different springs all around on country. So don't just think of it as in a two-dimension either. In layman's terms, just think of different material underneath our feet with maybe water in between. You'll have an impenetrable layer where that water can't pass in beneath them, and then permeable layers where that water can pass between those different aquifers. There's certain endangered or threatened springs that are culturally significant sites that rely on the health of that groundwater underneath our feet. And if it's being depleted, then that water may drop, 10, 20 meters, what might not seem much for something that's huge underground, but then that'll affect the recharge of that spring as well. The role in which groundwater, springs, aquifers play in our spiritual health and our kinship with country and that connection to country and our physical health relies on the health of those systems and those groundwater systems beneath our feet. So the health of those underground aquifers and the levels of which they're maintained then feed through permeable layers of sandstone rock to these beautiful oases where you'll see water seeping out of and below the ground into springs that then are beautiful, amazing, special, sacred sites for all different types of ceremony. And when we think of the above ground and the connection with the below ground, the river also relies, and the species within that ecosystem rely on those aquifer-fed springs to maintain some of the flows and the pools within that system that then maintain totemic species. And then also from Western society, you also have endangered or threatened species as well that rely on those systems for clean, accessible water, and then also drinking water for communities.
We have always been looking after country since day one. This is Little River. This is really, for me, it's home. I'm really lucky because my family, we work as a team. So my family will do the hard work here on the ground and care for country. So it's not just me, it's a team effort. That's always been my role, is to play a part in the bigger picture for the family. A lot of my uncles and my grandfathers and grandmothers and mums, they know a lot about how to run cattle. They also know how to care for country. And so all we are simply doing is integrating what they've done already for a good 70 years. We're documenting the changes in the seasons because of climate change. We're documenting plants at the moment, what they are, what they do, and where they live. That research, that's mums. We will use that as a kind of like a baseline to then look at how climate change impacts us, non-human kin, and those plants. There's been a lot of changes in a very short amount of time, which stresses the old people out, and which in turn stress the young people out, because it upsets us when we see our old people sad. My name's Ricky Dank. My traditional name is Ladi Prina, and I am a Garangia Wakaya person from the Rumbria clan. My country is women's country, and my work is to fight to protect my country and to help my family so that we can survive. I get emotional when I talk about this stuff. My grandmother taught me everything I know about living here, about life in general, and this is where she still is for me.
We're walking now up to some of the unmarked graves, It's a pretty intense area to be at, knowing that your literal relatives are potentially buried in this unmarked grave. It just feels really heavy walking around the area, and I'd love, you know, for our spiritual health to be able to have access out here where we can have ceremony, them to do more repatriation, which is in the process of skeletal remains. So they can come back home to country, and we can do that appropriately, and it can be done with the broader community. So I'm just saying to them, like, it's okay, you're here, it's all good, I'm coming to visit, pay my respects, say hello, thank them for, you know, what they've done for us as Iman people, and then also just acknowledge to them that they weren't brutal, vicious people like they were made out to be. And to let them know that yes, maybe they weren't given the respect they deserved in that process. You wouldn't realise there's over 250 people from many mobs around the country who are buried here in unmarked graves. And all the green you can see on the ground and these hessian bags here are to stop the erosion and runoff from all the water and rainwater that comes through here and is washing this site out, which we don't want, because we don't want our ancestral remains showing or disturbed. And for the climate, it's about being proactive and how do we mitigate these risks to our country.
Mining is a totally different story in terms of how that's regulated. One of the big things, particularly in my grandmother's country, where fracking is touted to be the first development, is that that place is highly folded and fractured. It's also extremely geothermal. So the elders are very, very worried about what will be the impact of drilling around these areas that have got geothermal activity, but also the fault lines. They are very concerned that if we start to fracture specific sacred sites, it is highly likely that we're going to trigger earthquakes. So they're not just worried about themselves individually, they're worried about public interest matters, they're worried about precautionary principles. And I think we need to slow down and really look at what is the Indigenous science, the Indigenous stories telling us about these systems, and how we should proceed with caution.
The Aboriginal societal perspective on water and how that differs from mainstream or Western society viewpoint of water is more about custodianship and care. It's not let's extract water because we want to get gas out to then make money and pollute the world. It's about, well, how about we leave the water where it is because it plays a role within the different levels of country. So it's deeper than just let's use water to grow cotton, or let's use water to have farms, or let's use that water to extract gas. So it's different in that perspective from the extractive industry to mob.
Water is the new gold. So we're taking a very precious resource and we're giving it to the richest people in the world to profit. And when you fracture the backbone of country, the gas doesn't just come up the pipeline, it comes up everywhere that the backbone of country is fractured.
How are we going to burn off if that gas is leaking up from the ground? I don't think they can contain the poisons when they blast underground and when they're trying to extract the gas from beneath us. I'm worried that those poisons are going to seep into our underground water systems and that they are going to poison those water systems. That's my biggest concern, is this poisoning the water, because my family also depend on that water to drink. And it really it upsets me a lot. We've had spills already up on our country, and it's killed plants and the trees in those areas.
Because you know that sheet I gave you. Some people will say, oh, it's illegal for you to be on a petroleum lease to test that water. The gas company doesn't want you there because you're going to highlight something that then they have to be held accountable for. But then from the other point, it's like, well, no, I have a duty of care to country to go out and check that. And we just got to make sure that these samples are stored in an esky to keep them at a cool temperature so that they're still valid samples, and then it'll get express shipped back to one of the closest labs to where we ship it from, so that they can usually turn the data around and testing within 5 business days, which is handy. Yes, I've been told some companies are better than the others, but a lot of the time it is very tokenistic and a tick box thing. And even I speak to the farmers to get access to these areas to test. And one farmer in particular, he said, oh, when they approached me to lease my land to drill their wells, they'd said they'd keep me up to date with what's going on. He hasn't heard from them in years since they originally did the lease. So he's relying on me to give him raw data and my reports on the health of water on his property back to him. Do I want to continue to build a relationship or even try to build a relationship with the industry as an Imman person? You know, I'm not on the board. I don't have to sit in those meetings, but I can help as an Aboriginal water scientist inform the board of the cultural health of our water systems on country that then they can take into those corporate settings. You know, from that Aboriginal standpoint, where it is from an ethical approach. It gets me really emotional because working within the colonial system, I didn't realise that I could help inform best practice as much as I have.
We bring people, especially from the climate space, up here to meet family, to see country, for them to have a relationship, to grow and bond with country, to inspire them to fight and to help us fight for this country. And for them to have an appreciation of, you know, Aboriginal people living out on homelands and to see how tough it is.
We're in a moment in time where we could do business differently. We're in a moment in time where we can say that if you want to create wealth, we have an alternative economic paradigm around the forever industries that we can share not just in this country but globally. What are the opportunities for us in the region to build trust, to sit around the table, to think about not only cumulative impacts of development, but what are the opportunities for pastoralists, for agriculturists, for traditional owners to work together, to share this land together and think about how we can build the new economies together without being negatively impacted. Last year I was Commissioner for Water. Right across this country, I got to talk to miners, to pastoralists, to graziers, to industry, to traditional owners, right around the country, and the biggest thing that was missing was trust capital. If we start to introduce mining into it, what are going to be the impacts of aquifer recharge? These systems take thousands of years to recharge. So if we're going to contaminate them with the overproduction of these mining companies, we won't know for hundreds of years what that impact's going to be. The government is even saying to many of us, they don't understand the recharge rates. So if we don't understand how much water is in that bucket of water, how can we be cutting it up and giving it to each of us? We really need to see that water justice and climate justice go hand in hand. We can't separate them.
When I reach out to different government ministers, it'd be nice to get a reply, for a start. So if I was to send, hey, here's my concerns, it's often we don't want to get involved because it's too political. It's like, nah, he's also an academic with a breadth of knowledge and he's informing you about that something that's happening. Why don't you come out to the country and have a look for yourself? Because if you're going to be the one to make a decision about what's happening, why don't you come out and talk to community?
My family's been living out here since our land was handed back, and a lot of the stuff that you see around us now, my family's gotten off their own back, and they worked really, really hard to get what we've got. And so I'm really grateful for what my family here in Little River have done. And without them, we wouldn't have a home base to come back to. So I think governments could actually come out to, these homelands and sit down with the people who actually live out on these homelands and ask them and genuinely say, what do you need? What can we help you with? I think it's that simple.
If government ministers want to learn more about the traditional owners of the country in which their decisions are affecting in good or bad ways, come and sit with us, come and have a proper yarn with us. And I guarantee your spirit, your health, and not only that, the knowledge that you will have to then better inform those decisions you make will be tenfold than what you would be otherwise sitting in your office in a major city away from those places.
We know the country better than anyone else. We've been living here for 65,000 years, but I don't think people truly know what that really means. For us, my granny knew that, just by looking at certain clouds or around the moon, that there's going to be a fog the next day, or if the flowers are blooming too early, there's possibly going to be a drought that's coming, and know how to, cope through those situations, and how to help country cope through all of that. So that's why it's really important for First Nations peoples, not just in Australia, but right around the world, to still be out on country, maintain a connection with country. People need to see the value of Indigenous knowledge systems, and start paying due respect to those knowledge systems. I promised my grandmother before she passed that I would do this work, and I would do it for her and for the family. But that's who my family are. They're hardworking, they're tough, they're loving, and they're loyal. And it really makes me angry that some gas company thinks they can come in and come to our country and upset my grandmother and upset my grandfather and poison our water. It makes me incredibly mad. So I want to show my family how much they mean to me by working as hard as I can for them.
If we are so stupid as humans and we befall our own demise, Mother Earth will right-size herself. Yes, Mother Earth has the power to rejuvenate, to heal herself. But if we are not here as humans, she will be lonely without the vibrations of our footstep upon her girth.